Tim, do you think we're getting to the point where Mikel Arteta is going to not start Viktor Gyökeres?
It's a big call. I say no only because I've mentioned before, he was a striker that they've been desperate to get. They went out and spent the money and they got him. So he has to manage the situation really well. It's not, I think he can drop him. I do. I think he has enough games and enough players where he can manage the situation. But he can't, as you said, you can't hook him at halftime. You can't embarrass him because you still need to get the best out of him.
Mikel has to do the right thing to win the title. And if that means Gyökeres doesn't start and comes on the bench and whatever, just make sure that at the end of the season, he feels comfortable in himself that he's made the right decisions.
Let's talk the title race and Arsenal. They went to the City ground knowing they could go 9 points clear, but they were held to a goalless draw by Nottingham Forest. Gonna be a toughie is the headline in the Sunday Express, and Tom Canton, who was at the game, said 2 big opportunities missed. He's referring to the Liverpool game as well, which keeps the door open to scrutiny for the Gunners in their hunt to end their 22-year wait for the English top-flight crown. Is this an opportunity missed for Arsenal, as Tom is referring to there, John, or might they look back in the fullness of time and say, do you know what, it wasn't a bad point?
No, I think it's an opportunity missed. I do. Quite brutal, really. I also thought that, bearing in mind they had Liverpool where they could have gone 8 clear, you know, that game, and they draw and they basically push it to 6. Earlier in the day, their mood must have been enhanced by Manchester City dropping points, and Arsenal have to feast on that and seize on that. Just because I think that bearing in mind they finished finished second for 3 years running, I do think they'll be looking nervously in their rear view mirror, and I think that the aspect of then winning, going 9 points clear, would have given them a huge lift, a huge boost, and it would have been a statement. Because yes, it is a very difficult place to go. I get that. I don't think they played brilliantly, and listening to Arteta afterwards, you know, again felt like, oh, we've been wronged, and you know, it didn't go for us, and I know he's sort of upset about the penalty call. But I think it was an opportunity to make a statement. I thought Arsenal did put on such a strong performance. And look at this. This is the one. And when I first saw it, when I watched it at home, I didn't think it was. I have to say, I think it was Lucy Ward, who was excellent on co-coms, was talking about. I think she thought it was going to be. And then you look at it, and Sean Dyche says the game's gone if it's given. Arteta is spewing about it, isn't he? But I'm not completely convinced. And Arsenal they've only got themselves to blame for not scoring. They had very clear chances in that game, and yeah, they've only got themselves to blame really. I thought Forest played really well, to be fair. Bearing in mind their poor results of late, and I just think, I think it was an opportunity wasted rather than a point game for Arsenal, really. That 9 points clear would have stamped their authority all over that title race, and again, they've just not been able to pull away from the rest of the chasing pack, and I think that's the frustration.
I think the point is, though, isn't it, that Arsenal shouldn't need what would have been a very dubious penalty to take something away from Forest. Forest were good yesterday, but some of their recent performances, I was at their game against Fulham and West Ham, and they were horrendous in both, really. They've got individual players that can do a lot, but they didn't look like a collective. That obviously changed yesterday, and you wonder whether it's one of those games where there's a team down the bottom that in the games there's a bit of pressure, they're anxious, but those ones where not much is expected, they really raise their level, and obviously frustrated Arsenal yesterday. And I think you could see, I think it was Declan Rice coming off at the end was absolutely furious with himself and probably with the team, you know, saying again, we've done it. And I wonder if that is just the second place for the last few years niggling away in the back of their minds, because so many of them will come out and say, oh no, game by game by game. But they'll all know Manchester City's next 3 or 4 games that they've got coming up. They'll know what they need and where they need it. I think they will be fine eventually. They've got more than enough of a cushion. Obviously, they've got the newly fearsome Carrick's Man United next week, but they'll get through that fairly easily, you would think. I don't think it's the worst result to go there, and they've dropped points back to back. A couple of draws, it's really not the end of the world. It's not like a proper wheels coming off this. We've built this lead and then surrendering it completely. It's dipped a bit, but they're still ticking over. And you just look at the changes. I thought it was good from Arteta yesterday to be that ruthless. The change at half-time and then another raft of changes very quickly after that. You look at the strength and depth that they've got, and I just can't see them fumbling it this time.
I still think the only team who can beat Arsenal is Arsenal themselves. I think that the gap between... I just don't think City will get enough points in over what remains of the season, given the wobble that City are having at the moment. I don't think City will finish the season especially strongly, and therefore I think the biggest single threat to Arsenal is Arsenal panicking, really. So I think so much of what happens in the title race from here will depend on whether or not Arsenal will, are they going to get really worried about their position? Are they going to get worried about their performances? Or are they going to be able to keep on grinding away in a fairly consistent way, which I think they are doing at the moment. There's obviously, the results are gone a little bit up and down recently, but I'm not sure how much the performance levels have changed. And if they can just keep that mental stability, keep that consistency, and not get too wrapped up in it, then I think that will probably be enough for them. I don't think they have too much to worry about in terms of City.
And you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Viktor Gyökeres.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous now. He's just on a different level, technically, to the rest of the team. Yes, the other players like him and want him to see well. You can see that in the way that he's sort of almost celebrated midweek, and yeah, everyone's cheering. But honestly, it's like they're doing it as he's a mascot. I mean, he is not good enough technically for that Arsenal team.
Let me put this to you then, John.
It's becoming actually embarrassing.
No, but let me
£64 million. Yes, he works hard. Yes, he occupies defenders. But Thomas,
you can't underestimate that, can you?
Yes, you can.
That's the basic, isn't it?
Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Okay, let me put this to you then.
They are
top of the league.
He's not scoring enough goals.
By
it's
7
like
points.
They're playing with 10 men.
They're top of the league by 7 points. They're clear at the top of the Champions League group. They've got 1 foot in the final of the Carabao Cup. They're into round 4 of the FA Cup. Can all of that genuinely be achieved by carrying a player?
Yes, because that is exactly, I'm afraid to say, my friend, that is exactly what's happened. Honestly, I'm sorry, but there has to be a time and a realisation that they've dropped one with Gyökeres. They've scouted strikers. They've looked at different options. Yes, they could have had Sesko, and maybe that would have been better. And different players for different opportunities and different setups. They went for Gyökeres, and let's be clear here, they did it for the here and now because he was a little bit older, experienced, and had scored goals for fun in Portugal. The absolute art of scouting and recruitment is knowing that you can take a player from a different league and a different team and he would settle in and immediately hit the ground running. And I'm afraid to say it's been proven week in, week out that yes, he scored goals in the Portuguese league for Sporting, and yes, occasionally he did it in the Champions League and he even scored a hat-trick against Man City, but they've got this one wrong. It's just not working. Havertz cannot come back soon enough. I love the way that the fans back him. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And, I really admire that and respect that. The players obviously talk him up and back him. But come on, as critics, we have to be objective about this and saying that Viktor Gyökeres is not an Arsenal player.
Okay, let me put this to you, Jack. So, John has almost labelled him as a mascot and that he's been carried throughout the season. Was it ever Mikel Arteta's plan to bring Gyökeres in and have that feeling where there's no other striker fit? Because I'm sure when a player who hasn't played in this league before and he's getting his first experience of the Premier League, be he at that age where he's ready or not, wouldn't the plan ideally for Mikel Arteta have been, right, we've got Kai Havertz, let's start with Havertz, let's hopefully get 2-3-0 up in some of these games, and then I can introduce Viktor Gyökeres, and then I can ease him in. But he's just having to be thrown in.
I'm sure that was his plan, but you're speaking about him as if he's like an 18-year-old they brought in from the academy. They've gone out, like John said, a more experienced player. They've spent big money on him. They've had this itch they've wanted to scratch with a striker for such a long time to get that in. This is the final piece. This will take us on. That was the commentary last year, but it was also coming from Arteta as well, going, we know this is what we need. We need that figure. We need some more depth.
Arsenal once again dominated the ball but failed to turn control into goals faced with steam from those soccer ball, as Nottingham Forest held the Gunners to a frustrating 0-0 draw. The spotlight quickly shifted to Viktor Gyökeres, whose quiet night in front of goal has sparked serious debate. Rebecca Lowe, Tim Howard, and Robbie break down the missed chances, the lack of sharp movement, and whether Arsenal's attack has become too predictable in big moments. Engaging paragraph 2. With the title race tightening and margins getting smaller, every decision matters. Is Arteta right to keep faith in Gyökeres, or is it time to rotate and send a message? The panel digs into Arsenal's attacking balance, confidence levels, and what this result could mean for the rest of the season. One thing is clear: pressure is building, and the next team selection could define Arsenal's title push.